Isaiah Thomas
Nice.
signing with the Pelicans. And what do you guys think about it?
I'm pumped for him. I mean, listen, the Pelicans are like ravaged with injuries, so I think they literally had to sign somebody to meet a requirement by the NBA for like active players. So honestly, Isaiah Thomas, I think he deserves another. Obviously, I think he definitely deserves a chance in this league to show what he can still do. I mean, we don't have to rehash what he meant to those Celtics teams, a few years back, and I think there's a connection there between him and the fans that, you know, he can move back to, he seems like one of those guys that could like join the Celtics organization. If it didn't end the way it did, anyways, he could join the Celtics organization and be set for life here in Boston. I think that's how much he's loved by the fans here. And I still think he's got something left in him. And really, I was kind of surprised that it took him this long to find a team, especially on something like a 10-day. I mean, what's the risk there? I mean, I think there was a stretch where I thought the Celtics could have used a spark and could have used an energy boost, and I still think that they could use that. I mean, there's plenty of games where they're moping around and playing with no energy, and I think Isaiah Thomas is the definition of those things. But they didn't want to bury Carson or Tremont Waters and some of these younger guys, and that would have happened if they brought him on. So I
Well, the
guess I see
reality,
it, but
yeah, the reality is
good for him.
he's just been so wildly inefficient and ineffective post hip injury that you know what a like detriment he is.
But
Um,
let's see it. I mean, it's kind. I mean, I think he's had another surgery since, and like he's gone through the whole rehab and all this stuff. I mean, all I'm saying is I think. I mean, good on the Pelicans. Hopefully, he can get some playing time. I don't know if he will, but I think he deserves the opportunity to show that whether or not he can or cannot play in the league. So good on them.
yeah.
Yeah, and the league has moved so fast since he was an MVP level player. We talk about like 2008, but even 2017 to 2021, the way this league has gone to a place where pretty much every team has 5 guys who can, execute a swish, get the matchup they want, and just scorch it. It's tough to be 5'9" or whatever he is, especially at this stage in his career, because literally the other team will go at him every possession.
That's
And
the problem.
there's no way around that.
I mean, look, we saw it here with Boston, obviously, in a year in which he finished top 5 in the MVP voting. But I mean, every year since then, the problem with him is that, that year he scores almost 30 points a game. He was so dynamic on offense, you could live with that, him getting absolutely torched and abused on the defensive. Every year since he's shooting like 30 something. I mean, terrible percentages from the field. It's dreadful. 35, 36% from the field, 25%, 30% from 3. He's just not. He hasn't performed on the offensive end nearly enough to justify a contract. It's not surprising to me. I do think we get stuck in this. A lot of people do. I mean, we did it a little bit with Tristan this year. Yeah, and it's not a great comparison, but you always remember that we did it with Jeff Teague is a better example. You remember the memory of a player as opposed to what they actually are today. Oh, I remember this guy a couple of years ago. He could really score. If we could unlock a version of that. In many cases, that version is gone. And in Isaiah, I think that version is long gone.
You think it is, but that's what I'm saying. Like, and again,
I'm rooting for him.
Yeah, I mean, I just think he deserves the opportunity I mean, based on what at his peak was. I mean, that's the most fun Celtics fans have had since obviously since the KG era and everything like that. So it's hard for me to just say that he's got nothing left in the tank. So I mean, I'm going to be interested to see how he can play. I agree with what Bobby said. Things do move fast, and everyone wants to switch, and they're playing with 5 tight ends out there now and all this stuff. So like, I get it, but I mean, at the end of the day, this guy could fill up the bucket. I mean, he could score.
Well, that's a good
quickly.
question. Could he have done better in the Teague role to start this year than Teague did?
Probably. Well, I mean, T was absolutely horrific to start the year.
Everybody
That's a good second guess there.
I don't think
Teague was so bad.
But here's the thing. I don't think people are stupid, okay? There's a reason.
I do.
I don't think all 30 teams are stupid. Like, there's no way a guy is sitting out there for the entire season and everybody passes and it's like, oh, if I just signed. If you're the Celtics, you clearly know that this is you have
No,
to
I get
have
it.
Isaiah's agent is calling here every day saying, come on, what do you think? Here's a clip of him playing.
Yeah,
My guy,
Isaiah said as much. Yeah.
he's basically said, like, I mean, Isaiah flat out
Right.
said, like,
He's
I've knocked
done.
on that door a lot, and
Right.
they obviously don't want me here. Like, it's the Celtics didn't just miss something, okay?
Right. And then Brad Stevens, says what he has to say to the media today, like, oh, I'm sure he'll have a long career and all that stuff. It's like, well, nobody believes you
Yeah.
because like you had your chance.
No, but
And, clearly,
John, would you have taken him over Teague?
I don't
in hindsight or
Yeah,
in
in
the
hindsight.
season.
In hindsight, yeah.
I think in hindsight,
sentimentally.
absolutely, because you already know what you got out of Teague, which was next
I
to
don't think
nothing.
so. I think sentimentally, yes. I actually think, what we saw from Teague the 2-3 games before he was traded, if you got a version of that the rest of the way, you would have had a usable.
John still loves Teague.
I don't love Teague, but the version you saw near the end was a more confident player who was doing things, who was taking it to the basket, who was getting to the free throw line, who was, a more dynamic offensive player than I think Isaiah can be at this point in his career. Peak Isaiah, of course, it's not even close. I just don't think you're getting it. So I'd love.
You're not going to get peak Isaiah, but he's a
Yeah,
good
yeah,
locker room. I think
Have we
he's a
had more
good
fun
locker room
watching
guy
a team
too.
than we had with that team? That's the best. That's the best team since 2008. Okay, that was the most
Right.
fun. Of course, you want to see if you can capture a bit of that magic. Plus,
yeah.
you feel for the guy and you love the guy because he left it all out there. I mean, everybody wants to see it work here.
Right.
But it's the same thing when they like remake a movie 10 years later, 15 years later. And I'm like, I don't want to see that movie. I just want to remember the movie the way I liked it before. Like, I didn't want to see the second Zoolander.
That was a bad sequel.
But let's just let
But Home Alone 2 was sweet though, so you never know. You just never know.
But if the sequel comes out right after, you don't ever want to see a sequel if you waited 10, 12 years for it, because that's a force. So I think Isaiah here would have been Zoolander 2. Like, I don't want to watch it. I just want to remember the good version of it and then leave it at that. And if he came back here, I think it would be bad. It would fail miserably. And then you'd remember that instead of the good stuff.
My only rebuttal to that is don't downplay. I think Isaiah Thomas is a very good personality, a good locker room guy. He has a history of playing with Smart. I think that he could have done some things maybe in the locker room to maybe keep the spirits up higher, because from all accounts, it sounds like everyone's been down and out at multiple points throughout the year. And Isaiah Thomas, has always come across as a positive guy and a guy that's going to, look at the glass half full and give it his all out there. He's never been a guy that, at least I've watched.
Well, that's an interesting dynamic too.
Stuff.
So T comes in here and he's pretty quiet. He just
of course
does
he's a new guy.
Yeah. Could Isaiah have come in here as the 15th man and gotten that welcome, like, oh, the King's back, it's his team, like him holding court? I don't know. That would have been awkward to me. That might have actually done more harm than good in the room, probably. Like, if this guy who just never played, which ultimately would have been his role, they probably would have done double big, Smart, all that stuff, sprinkled in Thomas occasionally. If he was going to be the one talking about the issues with the team and what we need to do and this and that probably would have rubbed some people the wrong way, just because of how small his role would have been here. Again, Teague didn't even come in here and play point guard every night. So Thomas certainly would not have. Like, he would have been off the bench situationally and probably just getting very limited minutes, which, as John said, would that have had any impact on this team? Because Teague's impact was minimal, but minimal is better than nothing. I don't know. There's a chance Thomas could have done nothing for this team.
Yeah, not just nothing, but then, you'd feel bad. He's, people would be clamoring for him to play if he did.
Yeah,
that's the one thing.
Oh my Lord, the fans. Yeah, that's a tough position to put a coach in.